Hey, what is up guys? 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗡𝗥𝗦 here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Sirui 20mm T1.8 1.33x Anamorphic Autofocus Lens. A couple of months back, we took a look at the Sirui 40mm lens on the channel, and I had mixed feelings. The image quality was pretty great, but the autofocus was unreliable. But I still ended up getting some really great footage with that lens. And now we're back to take a look at the 20mm sibling of that lens and look at everything from image quality to build quality, and of course look at a ton of sample footage. But first, I really want to try something. Can you vlog on this lens? All right, we're gonna kick off the vlogging test here in beautiful St. Armand in Sarasota, Florida. Right now, of course, we are shooting on the Sirui 20mm T1.8 Autofocus Anamorphic 1.33x squeeze lens. That is a mouthful. Right now, the lens is on the Sony ZV-E1. We've got dynamic active stabilization on, so we're shooting in full frame. The microphone we're using is a Sony ECM-B1M, and we're using the wireless handheld grip to get this camera a little bit further away, and that is the Sony ChatGPT GP-VB-T1BT. That is almost actually the name. Sony, y'all gotta step up the game on naming your camera gear, because that is not a good name. Anyways, yeah, let's see how good an anamorphic lens performs in a vlog setting. Honestly, a lot of the stores here have some like really fun looking clothes and really cute looking clothes, and I was shocked to say that I think a cowgirl hat suits you really well. It's not usually our aesthetic, but
one too.
It looks so good. I was like, I did not expect a cowhide cowboy hat to look good, like to be so fitting, but it was so fitting. It was like, it's kind of your, I don't know, it's not our aesthetic, but it's kind of your aesthetic. So, vlogging with this lens on a full frame camera like the Sony ZV-E1 with dynamic active stabilization turned on gives you just enough field of view in frame with your arms fully outstretched to get a pretty good vlog shot. When I had stabilization turned off, the field of view was actually perfect, but of course it's pretty unusable because of the camera shake. That satisfied my curiosity. Can you vlog on this lens? Yes, you absolutely could. All right, now let's talk about the image quality coming out of this lens, as well as take a look at some more sample footage. Now, to preface, most of the footage shot in today's video with this lens is gonna be shot on the Sony ZV-E1, which is a full frame sensor, and this lens is technically meant for a Super 35 or APS-C sensor. But as you can tell right now with this lens on the Sony a7S III, also a full frame sensor, it covers the full sensor. Now, granted, there's some weird artifacting in the corner, right? Like there's some vignetting up there, and over here you're definitely seeing some bendy distortion, which we'll talk about in a bit. But you can crop in about 130% or 1.3 times, and that gets rid of most of those issues. And you know what else is a 1.3 times crop? Dynamic active stabilization on the Sony ZV-E1. So you don't even need to do any scaling in post. All right, so let's pull up some of our test chart shots. You'll see that wide open at T1.8 centers are actually decently sharp. It's not a G-Master lens by any means, but it still holds up pretty well. Edge sharpness isn't too bad either, which is nice to see. And of course, as we stop down, it becomes sharper at T2.8. And if you keep going to T4 and beyond, you get a pretty sharp image. And now let's talk about this distortion. With it cropped into its intended field of view, you get pretty straight lines. But if I uncrop this shot at T4, so you can see the full field of view with stabilization turned off on the Sony ZV-E1, you'll see that you get quite a larger field of view here, and it's where you'll see that this lens has some quite obvious pincushion distortion. Again, this isn't the intended field of view of this lens, but if you're like me and want to shoot on a full frame camera with this lens, this is the distortion you'll get. In real world shots, the distortion is obviously noticeable when fully uncropped, crop like this, and you can choose to use this as a stylistic choice, or you can crop in with dynamic active stabilization and you'll get a much more rectilinear looking image. As for chromatic aberration, this lens definitely has some noticeable chromatic aberration when wide open at T1.8, which you can see here in the test shot, as well as throughout some of my sample footage. But it's pretty tame, and for some, this might add a bit of that character if you're not necessarily looking for a clinically clean look. When it comes to lens flares, you're of course going to get that anamorphic flare streak, which is probably what you're looking for when it comes to anamorphic lenses. And with this lens, you're going to get very pronounced blue flare elements. You're also going to get quite a bit of these trailing flares or ghosting as well. You'll notice that even cropped in at 150% to simulate the field of view on a Super 35 sensor, the anamorphic streaks will bend with the pincushion distortion of this lens, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. Personally, I think it's a fun and unique look to add into a shot, but I definitely understand that this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Next, let's take a look at bokeh. Bokeh on this lens is honestly really appealing to me. While it might not have the tallest, most squeezed looking bokeh balls, I think it still looks vertical enough to me. Combined with the anamorphic aspect ratio, it really creates a filmic image, which is what drew me into anamorphic lenses in the first place. Overall, the bokeh wide open at T1.8 looks quite pleasing to my eyes. Now, let's talk about the headlining feature of this lens, and that of course is going to be autofocus. And if you saw my review of the 40mm lens, you'll know that I said that the autofocus was kind of inconsistent. And now that I have the 20mm lens in hand, now I have a sample of 2, I think that I've just discovered that autofocus with a squeezed anamorphic image just doesn't work the same as autofocus with a regular spherical image. In my test footage where I track myself walking up to the camera slowly, and then separately I did one where I ran up to the camera, when I'm more than like 10 feet away from the camera, it just doesn't know where to focus, so it defaults to basically infinity. But then the moment I get within 10 feet of the camera, it suddenly becomes extremely consistent and is able to track me as I would expect most autofocus lenses to do. Something about the squeezed anamorphic image must be tripping up the camera's autofocus system, because when I'm like 10 plus feet away, I guess my face just looks too squeezed and it doesn't know that it's a face to focus on. But once I get within like 10 feet of the camera has no issue tracking me. And again, in real-world scenarios, it never really had that much of a problem locking onto me or my subject as long as we were reasonably close enough to the camera. But when it comes to shots where my subject is farther away, I definitely prefer to opt to use the lens in manual focus mode so I don't risk the autofocus having a mind of its own and ruining a shot. Overall, I'd say the autofocus on this lens is a smidge better than the autofocus coming out of the 40mm lens. And again, at a certain range, it works fantastic. You just can't go into using this lens with the same mindset you would with a native Sony lens, especially like a native Sony G Master lens, where basically it's plug and play 99% of the time. The autofocus is just tack on no matter where you are in frame. All right, I'm gonna meet you guys back in the house to talk about the build quality and design of this lens, but first, let's take a look at some more sample footage.
Liquidity dry, I couldn't quit if I tried. It's been a ride through all the waves and the tides. Little emptiness inside from all them days with the guys. Try to mask it, but I know you see the pain in his eyes. All the lows and the highs, all the gray in the sky. Every reason I should throw away and swallow my pride. All my life been like a permanent grind, of just deserving my shine. And you can't even tell until I push the curtains aside. Hey, and it's disturbing behind, but yo, y'all love to say it's worse in your mind. Still I'm searching to find something that's bigger than a verse or a rhyme. Find your wings and then the courage to fly, cause we all just trying to build a foundation.
All right, now we're back inside and we're gonna take a look at the build quality and design of this lens. But first I wanna show you guys, check this out. I finally put something on this wall here. This is 3 backlit poster frames, kind of like something you'd see in like a movie theater. This green wall is so cool, but it absorbs so much light and it makes this room so dark. So I'm so glad there's like a light source here, and also just kind of really cool. Here's some travel posters of some of my favorite places I've been to. Let me know what you guys think about that. All right, let's take a look at the build quality and design. The entire lens is made out of this thin metal construction with a geared focus ring and a geared aperture ring. It features a click-declick switch for the aperture ring, an autofocus manual focus switch, as well as a focus lock button. On the front of the lens, you'll find a 77mm thread for attaching filters, and on the mount, you can find a USB-C port for updating the firmware of this lens. And you'll also find a weather sealing gasket. I can't speak to just how wet you should get your camera, but I will say that this lens did survive some rain while I was in New York City for a secret project that I'm super excited to share with you guys. Keep an eye out for that. But yeah, it survived getting pretty wet, which I really don't recommend, but hey, at least you know it didn't die. Other than that, the lens is pretty compact and lightweight, easily palmable in my small hands, and weighs about 480 grams or just a little over 1 pound. Now let's take a look at the price of this lens and my thoughts on it. At the time of recording, this lens retails for $799, but right now it looks like it's on sale for $699. If you're interested in checking out this lens, I'll have a link in the description down below. Now, this video isn't sponsored by Sirui, but they did send me this lens to test and review, and they also gave me a Amazon discount code. It's at 5% off for you guys to use if you are interested in buying it. Now, here are my thoughts on this lens. Just like the 40mm bigger brother of this lens, I really like it. I haven't had a chance to get my hands on the 𝗙𝗣𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪 Autofocus anamorphic lenses, and I know those are highly spoken of and well regarded, but I really personally do like this lens, and to speak to anamorphic autofocus lenses in general, they are so much fun. Ever since I got into the Sony ecosystem a little over 7 years ago, autofocus has really changed my workflow, letting me turn around videos for client work and for YouTube super fast, and getting a taste of that freedom when it comes to shooting with an anamorphic cine lens like this has been absolutely game-changing. With a lens like this, I'm able to get this anamorphic aspect ratio super easily, be able to get these horizontal lens flares super easily, and to be able to get some of that vertical, tall bokeh, characteristics in the backgrounds in such a casual way. Now, what are the trade-offs? Is this the best image quality I've ever seen? No. Is this going to be able to keep up in fast-paced action scenes when it comes to the autofocus? Probably not. But if you want to casually start shooting anamorphic footage like this, or maybe be the first person in your local market to start providing anamorphic, videography in a pretty easy way thanks to autofocus, this might be a lens to consider. Now, keep in mind, if you want to adopt newer technology like this, you definitely have to go into it with the understanding that there's going to be a learning curve to understand the limitations of this new gear, and understand that many other brands are going to probably try to copy and iterate and improve upon anamorphic autofocus lenses. And in a few years, I'm sure we're going to get borderline flawless autofocus anamorphic lenses that'll put this lens to shame. But if you wanted to shoot in anamorphic with autofocus, there's only a few options, and if you're considering the Sirui 20mm T1.8, I'm a fan. All right, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and get subscribed if you want to see more camera gear content like this. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of this lens, or in general just about anamorphic and autofocus. I'm sure some of you guys love it, some of you hate it. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Peace.